You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness. But just like life, I'll rise.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We ain't gonna let nobody turn us around.
If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Dr. Harold J. Mackey received his bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees from South Carolina State University and earned a specialist degree from Clemson University. He broke many barriers, like being the first elected African American council member on the Williamston Town Council. He served as mayor pro tem for most of his tenure. However, before that, he began impacting mindsets, one student at a time, in the classroom, as a teacher. Dr. Mackey and his NFA, FFA students won more than 2,700 honors and awards.
Of advice that he always leave with me. He says, and he says that was just something that he would always share with his FFA class. Plan your work and work your plan. Plan your work and work your plan. And that is something that has proven to be, has been very beneficial for me. Because see, that's just it. Anything worth doing must be well planned. If it's expected to be well executed, it's got to be well planned.
Education, a priority in the Mackey household, as both Dr. Mackey and his wife, the late Bobby Madison Mackey, were teachers. Their daughter Harriet followed in their footsteps, becoming an educator too, serving students in Spartanburg County. Mr. Mackey was the FFA teacher for many years in Belton Honeopath High School, saying he loved helping students become productive citizens.
Mr. Mackey was one of the teachers who, during integration, was moved from Gear Gant, which was in Belton, to Belton Honeopath High. And he was the FFA teacher. And we, as students, all looked up to him.
Manford Thompson, co-owner of Unity Mortuary, was lucky enough to live near the Mackey home years ago. Frequent unscheduled meetings at the backyard fence would yield a harvest of unexpected nuggets of wisdom, like ownership creates power.
And I was telling him about an opportunity that I had to buy some property. And I was like, but then I have this other opportunity to do something else. And keep in mind, I'm young, I'm 25, I think I got the world by the tail and I know it all. And I will never forget Mr. Mackey was down, he was putting some flowers in the ground and he grabbed a hold of the chain link fence, pulled himself up, and he said, he always called you son. He said, son, let me tell you something. He said, some of my former students, he said, I'm so disappointed in, and some of them I'm so proud of. He said, Thompson, some of my former students are buying cars and rims. He said, and then there's another group of my former students is buying businesses, houses, and land. He said, you know what, Thompson? They're not making no more land. Boy, you buy that property.
Harold Mackey first ran for a seat on Williamston City Council in 1975, serving from 1976 to 2001. However, in one particular election, Willie Wright had his eye on that same council seat.
Now, there was one time when he was in office, I ran against him. Of course, he won that position.
While Dr. Mackey cultivated relationships with his colleagues, every 4 years he faced an election for his council seat. Mr. Willie Wright among the challengers yet again.
I ran again. There was 3 candidates that ran, and no one had gotten the majority of the votes, so we had to have a runoff between the two highs. So I was one in the two highs, so I had to go to the runoff. And of course, in the runoff, by some way, somehow, that I didn't quite make it in that runoff.
Mr. Mackey won the council seat again and continued to serve as the city's first African American council member. He was eventually elected as the first black mayor pro tem in 1994 and held that position for 26 years.
And I worked hard to get the re-election and to get my re-election to the supporters. And maybe one day, and they become the mayor of Williamson, but on a good prayer, I believe it's possible.
Current Councilman Tony Haygood says Mackey was aware that everyone wasn't happy with his position as a council member.
A new city hall, we have a new police department that's not prejudice, so we have integrated the various part department that many people get away from because of the pigmentation.
Well, he has told me about sometimes where he was referred to, by an unsavored name, and it was just in loose conversation. And that's just one of the things that I have never experienced here. Don't foresee experiencing it here.
Mr. Mackey blazed a trail of hope for those who looked up to him, a legacy that will forever echo in their hearts.
And I always looked up to Mr. Mackey. I knew he taught school and those kind of things, but I would read in the paper at the time of him being on town council, and he, with that being stated, was that he was a catalyst for me. That if he could do it, then maybe I could do something one day.
While Dr. Mackey made an impact on many lives, inside the police department that he helped to shape sits a man at the helm who Councilman Mackey gave a chance many years ago. That one opportunity is still paying off.
As a brand new police department, it's integrated, and we have a minority chief of the police department, and we have no problem with who we arrest for violating the law. And that's what I like about it. We all work together.
I think it was very important for me to see someone that looked like me. It was very, very important because I knew that ceiling, that once I saw someone look like me, then I could actually reach that as well.
The South Carolina House of Representatives and the Senate recognized Dr. Mackey for his involvement in remodeling schools and improvements around the town of Williamston.
And the reason why that I'm talking to you today is because I try to work with all the segments of society. The business leaders, the political leaders.
He had to talk through a whole lot of issues. I don't think that he just sailed in. First of all, he not only had to talk to the Caucasian community, but he had to talk to the African American community. And when you're kind of a pioneer in that kind of situation, you have to the African American community, you have to kind of prod them along.
With 12 years already under his belt as councilman, Tony Haygood currently holds Williamston's Ward 1 council seat. He is well aware of Dr. Mackey's legacy and his expectations.
And his ambition for me is to serve 25. He says, I want you to serve 25 years or better, and then later on go on to be our first African-American mayor.
While the community and serving others were important, Dr. Mackey and his family served at New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church.
His family comes from this church. His wife played for us for over 40-some years. She's a blessed memory now. His daughter's still a member of his church. His daughter is a teacher, Harriet Mackey.
I was a chaplain, state chaplain for Christ on God, working with people.
He was a deacon at New Prospect Baptist Church. He mentored what we need to be doing today. He mentored a lot of young black men. The man that actually took his place on the city council, Tony Haygood, he mentored him. That man has a lot of jewels in his crown right now. He does.
As a longtime member of New Prospect, Dr. Mackey served as a deacon, business manager, department superintendent, and Sunday school teacher.
You have to know Dr. Mackey. He's humorous, very informed, very knowledgeable, very in touch with what the community is going through, has always been abreast with the community.
He would speak up. He was able to get a number of things changed, like down in the Conley Park area and a lot of things in those communities and areas. And so as a result of that, you know, he's a man that's highly respected in the African American community and also the Caucasian community.
On June 9, 1996, Dr. Harold Mackey received the Order of the Palmetto, which is South Carolina's highest civilian award. His sense of duty extended to civic organizations and a brotherhood that focuses on developing leaders, promoting academic excellence, providing service, and advocacy for the community.
He's my fraternity brother. We are both members of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, Rho Delta Lambda chapter here in Anderson County.
But I admire Mr. Haygood and Mr. Mackey and those others that have worked and are still working with the city.
A teacher to the very end, Mr. Mackey wanted those following in his footsteps to always make room for each other.
We can encourage others to be more political and fun, to let's work together for the good of all. And if we do that, then we will be practicing the love of God, for all mankind.
Dr. Harold Mackey passed away June 2, 2021, leaving a lasting legacy and giant shoes to fill.
It was an honor. It was an honor to be able to carry out Mr. Mackey's funeral and think about this was a man who was one of my mentors, and this was a man who meant so much to so many people. I told his daughter, I said, I can guarantee you your father will have a first-class homegoing service. And to be able to be the one to make sure that that happened, yes, it made me feel very proud.
After educating students in the Anderson School District for 40 years, Dr. Mackey continued teaching life lessons that will live in many hearts forever.
And I oftentimes say that if I can just become half the man that my godfather, Harold J. Mackey, was, I would leave a legacy that hopefully no one would ever forget, that they would speak of me in the same regards that they speak of him.
And I've seen the promised land.
My father started the Unity Mortuary of Williamston, where we are right now, in 1968. Martin Luther King's father dedicated this place in 1968, only a few months after his son was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. He said when he got ready to buy his first Cadillac in the 50s, they wouldn't sell a black man a Cadillac. What did you do? What did you leave behind? Leave your mark. Don't just live, eat, and die.
I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land